Hello, YouTube. Hang on one second. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it is the 19th of February, 2024. I posted that we're going to have to do a short show tonight because I still got this bloody script finished, but it's getting close, so everything else is following behind that. But tonight's show, we actually do have some pretty cool stuff. Because let me just lower this a little tiny bit here. Thank you. Because there's been a couple of breakthroughs on the tech scene that look like they're going to be genuine, honest-to-goodness game changers, and that's not a term that I deploy lightly, I can assure you. So we'll jump into those in just a minute. But basically, what's been going on is this. There has been I didn't know it. Nobody knew it. It didn't really become clear to me until about 6 months ago. Oh, show us your shirt, sure. By the way, I just ordered like 25 new T-shirts. So this one is F18F, baby. That line is fantastic. Yes, I'm going to get a new shirt. We'll have a new shirt for you every weekend for forever. So here's what the race has been. Let me just turn on a few lights back here. It's a little dark. Talk amongst yourselves here. Much better. Much better. Okay. So here's the race. And as I said, we didn't even know there was a race going on until the last couple years, and I didn't realize it until less time than that. So I started in 3D Studio doing 3D graphics in 1992 with 3D Studio version 2, which, as I've said many times, I had to go and buy a pirated copy of. It was like $1,000 when I didn't have, $50 really handy. I bought a pirated copy. I was living in Hollywood. It's about 1992, or I would think somewhere around there. And so I had to do one of these things where it was like, okay, talking to the guy who's going to sell me this pirated, cracked copy of Autodesk 3D Studio, and it was really one of these things like, okay, you need to drive to this location, and you need to call me from the phone booth. You remember phone booths, some of you. Call me from the phone booth there. Apparently he's like watching, with binoculars. I went to this place and it was like 22 floppy disks with rubber bands around it. And I don't remember what it cost. Was enough I could afford. But this was why I'm so impressed, by the way, with the genius behind the business plan of Unreal Engine. 3D Studio made it so that nobody could get into the game unless you were, a studio, a fairly high-end graphics studio. Unreal has it set up so that Unreal is free. It's just free, and they keep adding more free stuff to it. They make some money on the sale of assets and so on, but basically it's free, and they know that they're just going to be creating, and then along is going to come a hit game like Red Dead Redemption 2, and they're going to get a percentage of that because it's made by Unreal Engine, and I just love it. So it's a really different model. Anyway, here's the race. I know no conformal fuel tanks on my T-shirt. That's why I got it. I'm going to rend it in half. Piracy is not a victimless client, says Castellan. No, it's not. Here's the irony of this, though. Before we move on, the irony of it is, I did steal that copy of 3D Studio. I mean, I paid for it. I just didn't pay Autodesk. I paid some other, kind of creepy tech guy living in a one-room apartment with, the windows all blacked out. However, because I got started in 3D Studio, I ended up buying something like 5 or 6 different versions from them over my course of my life, including currently I pay, a rental, or, it's a licensing fee. It's $200-300 a month or something for 3D Studio, which I wouldn't have to pay if I had more experience with Blender. But if I really have to do some quick work, I just know 3D Studio. So it would have been worth it for them to give me a student copy or something like that. The same with, I think with Unreal. Anyway, here's the race. So since 1992, I've been working in 3D graphics, and I have only one objective in mind personally, and that's photorealism. We've been down this road many times before. I just don't particularly like stylized content. And so photorealism, and then we did got to the point in the Unreal Engine 5, and there's some of this stuff just looked so great. And then there was, the MetaHumans was a big step forward, and I just looked at the interviews I did. I thought those guys look actually pretty real. It's really pretty getting really close, But, however, that has been the tortoise, just plodding along, and then along comes the hare, and the hare's going to win, because the hare has nothing to do with 3D animation. It's all 2D animation. I've done any number of shows, both Right Angles, Stratosphere Lounges, and Stratosphere Studios, about AI, but within the last 3 or 4 days, something happened that made me realize that everything that I have here is probably obsolete. I've got a couple of motion capture suits here; they're probably obsolete. So now I'm going to do something that I don't think I've done much before, and I'm a little uncomfortable doing it. So let me just make sure I get the credit on this here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play I think it's a 12-minute video, and I'm going to narrate over it. The reason I'm a little uncomfortable about it is it is a guy who's got a channel called Futurepedia, and I'm going to turn the volume down. I'm just going to do live commentary over it. It's his video. He put the video together, but he's talking about the software that I want to talk about. So on some level, we're both coming at it from the same direction. Because 3 days ago, somebody released. I don't even know the name of it now. Somebody released some software called Sora. So when we look at, and don't let me forget that Levalance Ave Imperator, I want to talk about that too. So thank you for the super chat. Don't let me not come back to it. So whenever I've talked about AI before on the show, I've shown you creepy things where the thing is constantly, it's just constantly iterating, and it doesn't know what a face is. It doesn't really even know what the geometry of a face looks like the way the 3D animation does. If I do a scan of my face, there may be hundreds of thousands or millions of 3D points that actually represent my face in real space. AI imaging doesn't do that. AI imaging only knows what a flat picture of a face looks like from various angles. That may not sound like a difference, but it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. So I didn't think that they'd ever be able to solve the AI creepiness. We went through the uncanny valley in 3D graphics. We seem to be well on the other side of that now. But up until 2 days ago, I didn't believe it was possible for AI-created video or visual images to look like they weren't done by AI, but now they do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to plug this in, and it's going to be a little tough for me. I always have to apologize to our YouTube watchers. I always archive the Twitch show, so I'm going to try and time it to that. I'm going to try and get these things going both at the same time, but with 2 streams running at the same time, it's a little tough. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to play this guy's video. I'm going to turn his volume down, I've already got it loaded into the YouTube stream. And then I'm going to just generally narrate over it, and then we'll talk about it some more when we get out on the other side. Okay, so I've got it loaded on the YouTube stream, but I don't have it loaded yet on Twitch. So everybody be cool now. Everybody just hang on 1 second here. We'll see what we can do. Probably I should put it... Where should I put it? I'll just put it here. I'll just put it right here. All right, so give me 1 second. The second I drag this in here, it's going to start playing the audio. I'm going to have to turn that down. Then I'll run the one on YouTube, and then we'll see what we can do. Okay? Ready? Here we go. So I'm going to turn his audio down completely. Is that his audio? Nope. I guess I turned my audio down completely. Right? Yeah, I think that's right. Okay, sorry, YouTube. Here we go. Okay, so the YouTube commentary is going to be a little bit laggy from what I'm doing. So everything that you're seeing here is generated by... There's no 3D animation here. This is all artificial intelligence creating an image frame by frame, pixel by pixel. There's no modeling. There's no 3D graphics. There's no 3D camera. Nothing. It's just telling the artificial intelligence what to do. But take a look at this quality coming up here. You will not believe it. I want to make sure that I get a... Yeah, okay, so this is a little tricky, but we'll do it. We'll pull it off. Look at that. Look at that. That is 100% computer-generated image. I don't think that 3D, as we understand 3D, will ever get to that point. Ever. That is... Look at that. That's indistinguishable from reality. It's not a particle system. It's not an incredible, highly complex model. It's just plain artificial intelligence doing it right. I mean, it's just absolutely breathtaking to me. Hello, cat. So let's just kind of go through this and just sort of stare in wonder and amazement, because once we get past this, then we can talk about, what it actually does. Now look at this. This, not only does the city not exist, not only is that city not real city, it's not a digital city, it's not a mesh, and the AI even got to the point where it got to when it took it to a darkened station, it did a reflection. Those people in the reflection aren't real. They're not 3D models either. But it's pretty near perfect. Pretty near perfect. And you can tell that does not look like computer-generated imagery. That does not look like something from Unreal Engine. It's 2 orders of magnitude better. This is one shot of, and the only prompt they put in was a California mining town, gave it the date. This is one shot, and I'm just completely flabbergasted. I'm just plain gobsmacked by this. Look at, you can't, if I showed you that image and told you that these images were not real, you'd have no way of knowing. Now, I think somewhere in here they said the physics occasionally get messed up, but boy, oh boy, oh boy. Obviously, you can do some fun abstract things like this too, and fun stuff like this. Yeah, okay, this is great. It's just not for me. That's awesome, but that looks a little CG. Of course, we have to have our pentagrams. It wouldn't be Hollywood without pentagrams. But you can obviously do some spooky stuff. Needless to say, I'm most interested in the photorealistic stuff here. So God bless this guy. Look at that. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing, 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 amazing to me. And the water is darn near perfect. The foam is nearly perfect. The physics of these little ships looks like it's in a coffee cup or a Coca-Cola cup. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Fire Waker says, "Oh, this is nice, but how does it apply to porn?" You don't want to know. Look at that. I've not seen any CG that looked that believable. I've seen some good stuff. Maybe I've seen stuff that came close. He's not real. But it's got, I think probably the thing about this that is most impressive to me is that it's doing the thing that's hardest for traditional 3D rendering, and that's skin tones. It's skin. Look at those reflections. Look at that walk. all of the creepiness is gone. All of that sense of iterating, constantly the AI constantly trying to make sense out of the world. The reflections in the glasses, I mean, essentially, now I'm exaggerating just a little bit, but essentially somebody types in, a Japanese girl walking down Japanese street in heart of Tokyo at night with wet streets. What do I say about this? What do I say about this? There's no. Oh my God. There's no limit to the. I mean, they solved this to some degree in Unreal with Nanite, but there's no limit to the meshes. You don't have to worry about how many points you're entering, because there is no mesh. The mesh doesn't exist. There's no texturing either. All of the things that we had to learn how to do are out the window. There's no more meshes. There's no more texturing. There's no more any of that. No more motion capture. No more anything. Now, we'll talk in a minute when this thing is done about what we can do with this and what we can't do with this. I don't know what he's doing here. ChatGPT, I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to look at all of this. I'm going to play it out. Oh, I guess I don't really need to. I guess at this point you've probably seen everything you need to see. Yeah, I think he's probably put the good stuff up front. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this here. Hang on a second now. First, in order to stop it, I got to figure out where I put it. Okay, I put it there. Yeah. Okay, we're back here on Twitch. Hang on, YouTube. And we're back here on YouTube. And thanks again to Futurepedia for putting that together. I didn't ask for his permission, but this is the internet. But at the very least you can do, if you can't get permission, the very least you can do is give people credit. Okay, so what did we just see? Well, we just saw the future, and it's so overwhelming that I'm not entirely sure how to process it, because it really did look to me like, did CGI just become obsolete? Yes, I think it did. I think it did. I think all of the work that I've done, I think Unreal Engine and all of this stuff, I think it's obsolete overnight, like that. Now, I was going to edit together another more scientifically oriented thing about this, but listen to this. What they did with this AI is, imagine that you built a set for a bedroom out of cardboard, and it was about this big. You had a little cardboard bed, you had little cardboard chairs, you had a window with a light coming through it, and you had a little picture frame, just a little square on the wall. And you basically have this little cardboard model of a bedroom, and then you tell the AI to iterate the bedroom. You tell it it's a bedroom in Tokyo or something, and it'll dress the room. But when you push the camera in and out or around like this, the AI will take the cardboard model and use it to generate photorealistic 4K images. I mean, whoa! Hey, good news there, Crispy Mofo, by the way. Fun to talk about that later. So I'm just kind of gobsmacked, and I'm glad to be doing shows like this, because I really am thinking about how much better and easier this is going to be. I had a little chat talk with Jeremy about this back and forth a couple days ago. Even things like the LED wall are gone. There's no more compositing. There's no more anything. Now, I want to get a little deeper into what all this means for the colonies and things like that. However, I did see some comments, and I think I saw some comments here too. I saw some comments on the YouTube video and elsewhere. And one of the most important comments is, this is going to put a lot of people out of work. I mean, it's going to put a lot of people out of work. The entire post-production industry is essentially done, because this stuff is not need to be run on a crazy supercomputer. It's just being run on a high-end PC. I mean, just let's just. This is such a revolutionary thing that I've got to step back and just really just like almost do my best to clear all the buffers and just reboot and repave the hard drive, because everything that I thought I knew, I need to think over again. I am happy to say that I think one of the first applications of this will be the combination of this kind of video tracking. It's not even video tracking, this combination of AI and the existing CGI world. So in other words, I think that, in fact, I've already seen examples of this. They weren't super great, but then again, it's a year and a half old, so that's, prehistory. The first thing that I think that's useful will be, I think it's probably the end of the motion capture suit, and I think it's the end of the thing that's on your head like this. I think that, well, at the very least, putting them together. I mean, I fully expect now that I could just build a cardboard box for a console and have a cardboard box over there. I know I can do this because I just saw it in this other video. I could do the interior of the moon base. I could have just a couple cardboard boxes against the wall. I could have a cardboard box for this thing. I could show it the CG renderings. The CG renderings would be the guide. My feeling is the more that you can give the AI, the better it's going to turn out. Just don't leave. In other words, leave as little of it up to the AI as possible. And I would not miss the motion capture suits. I won't miss trying to sync these things up. I really like the idea that I could just bring in 2 or 3 actors and just have a couple 3 cameras covering this thing, and I mean just iPhones. That's all you need, and then just sending the footage into the AI from 2 or 3 different angles, and it's going to produce motion capture data that I can import into Unreal. And then not too far downstream, in fact, probably is a waste of time to go to Unreal, it'll just take me out of the picture and put in whatever I tell it to put in, which could be me in a rabbit suit, but also could be renderings of like the super most detailed, really cool looking spacesuit. And then it would just basically, it's not compositing. It would take my face, put it inside the helmet, get all the movements exactly correct, and then just do whatever you want. And that's like on a small scale. But think about a big scale. You saw the reason I hadn't seen the bizarre shot, the shot of those hundreds of people there, because if you're going to do hundreds of people in Unreal, you have to have hundreds of models, and there is software that handles like group behavior, but you essentially have to go in there and animate like every single one of these things. And now it's like, really, you want to have 1,000? You want to have a spaceship land in the middle of the Super Bowl? You want to have the LEM land in the middle of the Super Bowl, a reinforced LEM so the legs don't crack, And out of the LEM steps Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, and they're not lookalikes. Those are their actual faces. And they get around the field. That'll actually would be, come to think of it, that would be an excellent test project. Because one of the things, switching gears just for a second here, one of the things that amazed me the most about the Apollo research I did for Apollo 11 was the fact that if you put this is just Apollo 11, but if you put the lunar module on the pitcher's mound, the 4 legs are pretty much right at the border of the clay and the grass on a pitcher's mound. And if you put the LEM on the pitcher's mound for Apollo 11, almost the entire EVA takes place on the infield. There's a point where Neil walks over to the third base dugout, and there's another case where he goes all the way about halfway out into right field. But that's it. Everything else is inside the clay. And just as a test of the technology, I think it'd be fantastic to tell the AI that I want to see not a packed stadium, I want to see Dodger Stadium packed with people. I want to see the lunar module land. I want to see Neil Armstrong get out, and I want him and Buzz to be in 1/6 gravity, and I want to be able to take a look at it from any angle I want to. And I frankly think that is already pretty much doable tomorrow. So in a weird sort of way, it's almost full circle for writers, because, well, science fiction writers, because science fiction writers like myself had to rely on various methods of getting their vision on screen. And back when it was, the original Buck Rogers, you'd have a little thing with a little firecracker coming out the back and put it on a string and spin it around, and that would be your spaceship. And it got better and better and better and better, and models got better, then CG got, bad, then it was okay, then it was good, then it was very good. But now it's back to the writer again, because really at this point, if I'm getting this correctly, and I believe I am, it's limited by your the term limited by your imagination has been used so many times before, but this is really what it comes down to. A writer should be able to sit there, look at the screen, type in the prompts that he wants, say, make the sky a little more purple. No, less saturation. Okay, now give me a moon in the sky, and I want the moon to be a breathable atmosphere, but I want it to be real green, like there's a lot of, lots and lots and lots of, like, the computer's doing 20 million cycles saying, come on today, Junior. And I'm just like, what? Hello? But all of the applications, obviously, I'm just struggling with because I just saw it. But the bottom line is the output. Those pictures of those knights with the blue eyes and the steel helmets, perfect. And that to me is the only benchmark I have ever had for anything that has to do with all of this fun stuff. Is the goal is to make it indistinguishable from reality. And like I said, it's a race where the tortoise, the tortoise and the hare, the hare runs real fast, then it goes, takes a nap, and then the slow but steady tortoise wins the race. Nope. Slow but steady tortoise has been just walking along just as fast as it can, and just when the thing looks like it's about to get to photorealism, AI just comes, see ya, goodbye. So it's very, 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 very interesting. And I don't know exactly how detailed this thing is, but I have no doubt that because Darth Chuck the Merciless, and you always have to listen to Darth Chuck the Merciless, because otherwise bad things will happen to you because he's merciless. It's not a coincidence. You don't even want to know. But let's say you've got, I've got in a folder here, I've got 35 2D renderings of various spaceships. As far as I can see, show it to the machine, and the machine will make it, and it will be perfect. And if it turns out there's some little quirk or something, if something was not covered in that angle, just put it in there. I want 2 more portholes right here and right here. Ding! And it's there forever. Yes, thank you. I will get to that. Yes, very good. Levy Lance. Levy or Levi? I'm going to go with Levy Lance. Also imagine the guy who made A Star Taste having that AI rendering. So if this thing... So just to wrap up my little, geekathon here, so that we can get to the other geekathon. Looking at this, I realized it's really going to just come down to, the colonies is just going to come down to how deeply imagined is this in my head. And it turns out it's very deeply imagined in my head. Very, 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 very. For me, the thing that was such a breakthrough here, Levi, like the jeans. Levi. Thank you. Levi, like the jeans. So, I don't have the time or the inclination to jump into this right now. When I say right now, I mean in the next month or two. I'm going to continue to do Major Mace Mattingly in Unreal Engine the way I like it. This technology might be, they may not release it even to the public for another 6-7 months. I'm not going to wait that long. And besides, the smart play will be to hire somebody who understands this from the ground up, and then just hire that person and just work with them to get it. But the final thought that I had was, I like my four guys so much. I like their faces so much. I like their voices so much that I don't want to see them go. And then I realized I can just show those faces to the computer, and the computer will make them look like 100% real people. I mean, just think about this now. If you have this software, just go 2 years down the road, 3 maybe that long, maybe less. You can make 4K movies about anything that you can imagine. And if you do the voices, just record a voice track. Probably could, in fact, not probably, you could just type in dialogue like on a movie script, and the characters will say the lines, and each AI voice will be different, the way I've got the four guys' voices different and stuff. This is the kind of thing where it's so revolutionary that it's a little scary. Not scary, but just kind of overwhelming. Oh wow. Dante 2K for a super chat says, AI thing I'm looking for is to finally be able to see recast Apollo 13 with Kevin Costner playing Jim Lovell in place of grossly miscast Tom Hanks. Wow, man, I did not know that, but Kevin Costner would have been freaking perfect. He's a ringer for Lovell. That's a really cool idea. Just as a spin me off on another side, we're going to come back to the final end of the Horus Heresy. It's over. I've read, 62 novels in the Horus Heresy, plus another 10 books or something in the Siege of Terra. So I'll get to that in a minute, because it's finally done. It's finally over. I did not know this, but apparently, and I may be wrong about this, may have been just a post I saw on Facebook, but I think that there was some consideration for Captain Kirk to be played by Robert Conrad. Now that would have been cool. For those of you who don't remember Robert Conrad, that's going to be one of the shows I'm going to put on the new openings for the Stratosphere Studio. I thought The Wild Wild West was one of the greatest shows ever. We never talk about it, but I just love it. James Bond is a cowboy. It was a tremendous show, and I just thought Robert Conrad was fantastic in it. I just loved it. And Dave Big Booty Assistant Jack Lord was also seriously considered for James T. Kirk. Robert Conrad would have been a real different Kirk. And in the Wild Wild West, he got the chance to have some fun with himself. But nobody's going to beat Shatner at this. I saw a picture of Shatner. I don't know if this was one of those clickbait things, but the guy's 93 now or something? Apparently somebody told me last time we did this that there's a documentary coming on about him, but I saw him at 93, and man, he looks 93. I just realized that Shatner is the only, I think Shatner's the only person I know that's in their 90s and overweight, and has been overweight their entire life. You never see old fat people. Not old fat men, anyway. Down to 2 cases, Robert Conrad was Jack Lord before Jack Lord was Jack Lord. That's exactly right. The Wild Wild West was a great show, and Black Sheep was fun too, but it's just nothing compares to the Wild Wild West. That show came out right at the same time as Star Trek, and it had and Lost in Space, and it had that, I don't know if it was on NBC, but it's like, color, here comes a color TV show, and just, what's going on here? Yeah, it's James Bond. He's James Bond in the Old West. He's Secret Service agent for President Grant, and he's got all these gizmos, and Artemis Gordon is like his Q, Colonel Angus says that Shatner is robust, not fat. Okay. Well, if that's the case, I'm pushing robust myself lately, and I'm gotta shed some weight. Last time I knocked off 16 pounds, it was at the Wuhan Weight Loss Clinic, and damn near worth doing again, to be honest with you. Although if my wife is still watching this, she's going to be screaming, "Don't say that." Anyway, it's very, very exciting. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I expect what will probably happen, gang, is that this AI technology will be, we're going to work this into the traditional CG workflow until it replaces everything. So I suspect the first thing to go will be the motion capture suit. And, you know, they're cool and they're fun to wear and all that, but just the calibration and the drift and the, you know, just if I can just walk around a room with 2 cameras, 3, be better, and just have the thing just assemble the mocap data just for everything, that's sweet. So that's pretty cool. And then I guess we'll just work it in. There still comes a point though where, see, and I'm wrapping this AI up, but there comes a point with the AI thing where I don't know how. Well, I guess I'm sure they'll come up with the tools, but things like the camera, and really just pretty much the camera. In 3D, you're the lord of the camera. You put the camera anywhere you want to. In bad 3D, you put the camera way too close to these things and you get shots that are impossible to get. And by the way, Masters of the Air is ruined by the CG in that show. Masters of the Air has moments where the CG is just perfect. And then they do this same nonsense with, 7 fighters that are, 6 feet apart, go shoo, 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 past the the cockpit of a B-17. It's like, do we have to do this? I thought Steven Spielberg was sitting shotgun on this thing. It's like, I'm starting to creak almost. It's just not good. It's not even that the CG is bad. It's CG looking. It's like they've done all of this hokey CG stuff. Now, Dave Big Booty says the CG of Captain Winters jumping out of the plane in Band of Brothers was perfect. I suspect he's pulling my leg because that would have been what, late 90s, I want to say, maybe. Anyway, it's an exciting time, and Fiery Waco says plane zipping through a frame at 0.5 seconds isn't visually appealing. The thing to do with and this applies to the Frank Luke thing as well. There are two things that are kind of like visual models. One of them is that I would use as references. One of them is the Battle of Britain. Because Battle of Britain, which was made in, I want to say about the same time, right? Around 66, 64, somewhere in there. Back when that was, 20 years after the war ended, and they still had a lot of the aircraft. They had to use I think they had to use like a Spanish Messerschmitt, so the 109s looked big in the chin. They were 109s, but they didn't look right. But they had plenty of Spitfires and Hurricanes and all the rest of it. And so Battle of Britain was shot in the air with real photographers flying real airplanes, and that's why it looks so real, is because it's real. There are moments where there's a lot of stuff in Dunkirk that looks real because it's real airplanes in some cases. But there's that, and then the other thing that you could reference is I've seen footage of a dogfight, a World War I dogfight, from a flying Spad attacking a flying Fokker D7. These are modern aircraft restored with the same engine, same everything. And it's just a GoPro on a Spad and a GoPro on a D7. And that looks not only real, but is freaking horrifying. It's just horrifying how close these guys were to each other. And, even in World War II, I mean, now with beyond visual range missile kills at 100 miles, but even in World War II, you put bullets into the airplane, you might see the pilot bail out. But in World War I, you would have to have seen everything. You would have to have seen every single pop on the back of that guy's leather jacket where a round went through him. It must have been just horrific. But those two things, make your CG grounded in reality, and your eye will not give you away. When you do this kind of stuff, this movie Midway was just a horrible, offender in this regard. You know, it's like, I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking about. The Midway movie came out a couple years ago with Woody Harrelson as Nimitz. He's pretty good Nimitz, actually. But you know, you got these guys diving on the Japanese carriers, and I'm thinking, I understand what you're trying to do, that it's dangerous and stuff, but they're probably throwing in 5 or 6 times as much flack as these guys actually took, something like that. You know, it's too much. You don't have to turn up Midway to 11. You can tell Midway exactly the way Midway happened. When you turn everything like that up to 11, you got nowhere to go. It's that singer comes out and hits the highest note that she can sing and stays there the whole damn show. It's like, you don't need it, you know? Show me what it really looked like. I mean, I guess one guy sinking 2 carriers is not interesting enough for you. You know, we got to jazz that up a little bit. Talking dog, maybe. So anyway, yeah, P7 2017. I have a cool little scene about that with Frank Luke, where he's talking about the fact with his fiance that we don't get pilots, but the Germans do. And anyway, that was fun. All right, so moving on here. I came real late to the 40K universe. For almost all of my coexistence with 40K, I just thought it was just ridiculous, because I just looked at the tiny little heads and the big, you know, the shoulders and the square-looking spaceships and the gothic spaceships, and I just went, oh, come on, man. But then I got a little bit into the lore, and once I got into the lore, I was hooked. I mean, really hooked. So you could make a pretty compelling case that the Horus Heresy is the, if nothing else, it's like the loudest rock and roll band in the world. If nothing else, it is the longest saga in terms of pages. I don't think there's any question about that. There's 62 novels, and I've read every one of them in order, plus another 10 in the Siege of Terror, which is part of the same story. And that's just a ton of writing, a ton of material. So we're going to go on a little 40K experience here. Spoiler alerts if you haven't. Well, here's the nice thing about this. You can't spoil the final book of the Horus Heresy, because everybody knows what's going to happen in that book before it happens. It's the central story of the 40K universe. There's going to be Horus rebels against his father. He's taken over by the powers of chaos. Half of the Primarchs go one way. Half of the other Primarchs go the other way. And then Horus advances on Terra to kill his father, to take over the Imperial Palace. The greatest battle in the history, not only the greatest battle in the history of the universe, the greatest battle imaginable. The scale of the battle of the Siege of Terra, it's what makes 40K 40K. I mean, it's simply unbelievable. And so everybody kind of knows that that's happened in the past, so now they're just kind of going back in and really, really, really filling in all the details. So the climax of the 40K universe, the climax of the Horus Heresy is, everybody knew this. Everybody knew this is what the books were going to be about. This is why people were waiting for them. One of the Emperor's sons, one of the Primarchs, Primarch of the Ninth Legion, Sanguinius, who's intentionally bioengineered to look like an angel, has huge wings and can fly and everything, is probably the most appealing of all of the loyal Primarchs, and Horus is the most powerful of the traitor Primarchs. And everybody knows the lore. It comes down to the final battle on board the ship, on board Horus's flagship. Horus kills Sanguinius, the Emperor kills Horus, but then the Emperor also is so badly damaged by Horus that he basically becomes the corpse god. He's just, that's why the logo of the Empire goes from being the Aquila, the eagle, prior to the Horus Heresy, to the skull. Skull's on everything in 40K, and it's because it's the Emperor. The Emperor is a living skeleton. He's kept alive by the sacrifice of 1,000 psychers a day. 1,000 psychically capable people have to be sacrificed every day just to keep him alive. He's slowly dying. That's why the whole universe is so horrific. The entire 40K universe is a drying out fish head in a garbage pile. That's what it is, and that's why I love it so much. Because the imagination of so many people has all gone in the same direction, and that direction is, how awful could the world possibly be? Well, it turns out it could be pretty awful, you know. In the distant future, in the far future, there's nothing but war. In the grim darkness of, forgive me, Emperor protects. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, and that's all there is to it. And it is so rich. There's so much stuff. If you want to get into 40K, I can tell you the thing. If you're not into it, there's one YouTube video. It's about 45 minutes. This is what put the hook into me. I don't have the reference for it, so you can just write it down if you happen to have one of those archaic pencil things, or you can search for it now on YouTube if you want to. It's not the biggest 40K channel, but it's very, very good because the whole thing is in character. And the channel's name is Oculus Imperia. And it's a guy who's got a very, very soft-spoken voice. And he does all of this as if he's a researcher in the vaults of Terra. And he's a historian. Not a historian, sorry. He is a... oh, gosh. He's not a remembrancer. He's a... he might be... Well, he is a remembrancer. I guess that's the term. But probably another one. But look up Oculus Imperia, and then of his many, many videos, look up A Pilgrimage to Terra, because he talks about the millions and millions of people that come to Terra every day. It might be billions that come every day just to visit the Imperial Palace. They all just want to get as close to the Emperor as possible. Most of them die on ships coming through the warp, and a lot of them are blown out of space. If the slightest bit of paper, you misspell an I on, you put an I where there's supposed to be a J on your entrance papers to Terra, and the Imperial Navy just blows the entire ship out of the water with 20,000 souls on it, just because they're not taking any chances when it comes down to the Emperor. And horror upon horrors, and then when you get in system and you have to wait on Luna for 3 years while the paperwork's being done, and then if you manage to get down to the surface of Terra, you have to go through this whole procedure, the gates, and people just dropping dead all around you, and the bodies just disappear because somebody has to feed these pilgrims, and that's where the term corpse paste came from. That's 40K. Boy, that's all you need to know about 40K. Corpse paste. Historitor. Thank you. He's a historitor. That's the word I was looking for. They're very careful about this, by the way. It's one of the reasons why 40K works. They avoid science fiction terms. They have made High Gothic the language. It's English, obviously, but there's a great deal of Latin in it. A great deal of Latin in it. They don't say slaves because they don't have robots. There was once a long time ago a battle against AI, and it didn't go well. So they don't do that anymore. What they do for machines now, for routine sort of automatic functions like driving cars or sorting bottles or whatever, they take criminals and they lobotomize them to a certain degree, depending on how bad they are or how smart they were in the beginning, and they become living slaves built into these machines. They don't call them slaves; they call them servitors, and they don't talk about space. You never hear the word space in 40K. It's a space opera. You never hear the word space. It's always the void. It's always the void. There are no radios. There are voxes, and they keep. Soylent Green is corpse paste. Exactly right. Corpse paste. Yes, they take the bodies of dead humans and grind it up into paste, and then they spread that on, I don't know, some corpse bread, and it's not very appealing. The entire universe is hell. It's total hell for everybody. It's hell, and it gets darker and darker and darker. So it's a fascinating exercise in how far you can go. Now, somebody there asked me who my favorite Primarch is, and these Primarchs, I think we can all admit that some are better developed than others. For example, I don't think that there's a huge difference between like Ferrus Manus and Perturabo, and then Perturabo and fading fast here. It'll come to me. You could tell because this thing started as a board game, I want to say in the 70s or 80s. Just these little miniatures, and since they're made out of lead, they were small, and they had to have super thick arms because the lead pieces would break off. So that kind of became the design aesthetic for the whole thing, and so they just kind of scaled that up. Mortarian. So the Emperor creates 20 sons. He builds them from scratch. The Emperor is the greatest psychic genius, greatest psychic and the greatest mind in the history of the world. That's why he's master of mankind. He's an immortal, lives forever. And he basically designed 20 sons that used a lot of his DNA, but by no means all of his DNA. He made 20 copies of it, not copies, 20 versions of himself. And I can't believe they haven't cracked this egg yet. So there are 20 Primarchs, and then from the Primarchs, from their genetic stock, comes their legions, which are the Astartes, these space marines, these supermen. They're 7 feet tall, and they're just enormous. They have all these powered armor, and they're just designed to kill. That's all they do, is they train to kill, period. They meditate, and then they kill. And then they meditate, and then they kill, and they train to kill, and they train to meditate, and meditating helps them kill, and training helps them meditate, and that's it. That's what they do. But these Primarchs are all kind of different. I'll get to Primarchs in a minute, but you could tell in the beginning that it was a little bit, I don't want to say, well, it sounds lazy. I was going to go with lazy. But the point is, you've got, each one of these Primarchs has a legion. Oh, this is the egg that they didn't crack. There are 2 Primarchs that disappeared. Nobody knows what happened to them, just that it was a catastrophe. I want to say from memory it was the 2nd and 11th legions, but I'm not 100% sure of that. It's been a while. They're just not there. So there's instead of 20 legions now, there's only 18. They're just gone. And when I say I can't believe they haven't cracked that egg, it seems to me like Games Workshop, which is the guys that own this property. It's like, they've got this mystery of mysteries. Like, they could at some point in the future introduce a new Primarch, and I guarantee you, if they do, it will be a woman. I guarantee it. Somebody just said, "Oh, they left the women out." Well, it's because you're talking about super warriors. And when I started to watch 40K start going down that woke road, where it's like, 40K had a place for women. They were the Sisters of Silence. They made great assassins, but I guess this is probably not exactly the most woman-friendly thing. But the power that the women had was that these Sisters of Silence were psychic nulls. They were unreadable because essentially they had no souls. It's not all women, just this kind of women. And so any kind of psychic ability was just like a damper field, and people would just, ugh. But the Sisters of Silence were great. A lot of naval commanders and army commanders were women. That's great. But when they start to try to make women into Primarchs, now you're back. You're precisely where you are with men and women's sports, where if you had to take the fastest 1,000 track runners in the world, they'd all be male. If you had to take the 10,000 fastest track runners in the world, they'd all be male. If you had to take the 100,000 fastest track runners in the world, they'd all be male. I think you'd have to get down well into the tens of millions, because every high school has one or two kids, and every college has several males that run faster than Flojo, which is a record. So if you're going to build super warriors, there's no reason to not use males for them, because that's what they're kind of built for in the first place. Anyway, so you got these different Primarchs, and they all have their own individual characteristics, and their legions bear their personality traits. So, people are attracted to various legions because the legion and the Primarch have such distinct. That's why the Emperor designed them. Dorn, for example. So Rogel Dorn, forgive me if I make mistakes, it's been a while, who I want to say is the Primarch of the 6th Legion. Dorn is a single-minded defensive guy. The 6th Legion was created to help protect the Emperor, to protect Terra. He's got his own special Legiones Custodes to take care of him personally, which are super Astartes. But Dorn is like Mr. Defense. That's all he is. He's just this constant looking around everywhere for where could a threat be. So, but Dorn has got such fortitude, because he makes forts. That's what he does. Needless to say, I'm probably the most. I never played. I think I played Dungeons and Dragons twice or three times in my life. I played a lot of Traveller, though. Excuse me, but Traveller doesn't have this. But from the little I know about Dungeons and Dragons, I'm probably the most lawful good guy on the face of the earth. That's just me. So that kind of narrows it down pretty much. So I know it's the default choice. It's kind of like rooting for the Yankees, but I think I'm going to go with the Ultramarines and Robert Guilliman on this one, because he appeals to me as the Primarch who brings order back to chaos and rebuilds fallen glory, and he's the hope of the future because he's so phenomenally capable as a leader. He's got his own little empire within an empire called Ultramar. That's how they pulled off the Ultramarines, you see. They're not Ultramarines, they're from Ultramar. They're the Arenes. They're the Ultramar Eans. Everybody knew it would be. Everybody who knows me and who knows 40K knew that it'd be the Smurfs for me. Everybody knew it, because that's what he is. Sanguinius is a Primarch of the. Did I say the 9th? No. Anyway, he's a little bit too artsy for me. He's a little bit too pretty, But there's a lot of laziness in the naming, which leads to confusion. So, for example, you've got the 1st Legion, which again, I just have to keep qualifying this by saying it's been a while since I was deep into this. I used to be able to name all of these guys. I've just had to delete those files in order to load some new ones. But basically, I think it's the 1st Legion, which are the Dark Angels, and then I think the 9th Legion, which are the Blood Angels. So you got Dark Angels and Blood Angels. You've got the Iron Hands, and you've got the Iron Warriors. You've got the Luna Wolves, and you've got the Space Wolves. It's like, okay, so we got 2 sets of Irons, we got 2 sets of Angels, we got 2 sets of Wolves. There may be others that are eluding me, but it's like it's just a little confusing. And I think if they were to do it again, they would have probably, broken it up some more. Corvus, for example, that's a Primarch that's, I wouldn't say is particularly well developed, Perturabo gets a chance to shine a little bit in this Siege of Terra series. But there are on the other hand, and by the way, this I know this is inside baseball. I'm not going to stay on this too long. If you've never gotten into 40K, this whole thing's just gibberish. But for the people that asked, I thought that the thing that put the hook in me on the Horus Heresy was either the 2nd or 3rd or 4th book, whichever it was, with Fulgrim. When Fulgrim, who's all about perfection and everything's purple and gold and everything's when they did the episode on the book on Fulgrim's ship, where everybody went mad and there's just this orgy of destruction and death and everything as a performance art, I thought Fulgrim is going to be one of the greatest villains in this whole thing. He's just so astonishingly decadent, and then he disappears. He's gone. I haven't seen him since then. He's just gone. Where was Fulgrim during the Siege of Terra? I don't know. I don't know why they didn't write him in. I understand why you wouldn't write in Corvus. I understand why you wouldn't write in Conrad. I understand why you wouldn't write in, a number of others. Ferrus Manus being one of them because he was the first one to be killed. But what happened to Fulgrim? He was just so fantastically weird. And Lorgar, where was he? Where were these guys? I don't know. So you're really left with kind of like 5 or 6 default things. The Fifth Legion are the Space Wolves, maybe, right? Rus and they're Space Vikings basically. They're really pretty cool. They're badasses, those Space Wolves. So you got Rus. You've got if you're kind of in the mysticism thing, you might be a Magnus follower in the Thousand Sons and. But there's some of them are just so specialized, like Rus and the I want to say the Fifth Legion is you got to be into the whole Viking thing. If you like Vikings, if you like the show Vikings, then you're a Fifth Legion guy. And then there's all sorts of other things, as Eric points out. There are Black Templars. There's this all of these secret societies that are competing with each other. There's the Inquisition. There's just the imperial bureaucracy, the bureaucracy. This is one of the reasons I like it so much, because by the time you get to 40K, all of these things that I just talked about, Horus Heresy happened in 30,000 AD. I'm a 30K guy. By 40K, everything has been 10,000 years of just absolute utter stagnation. All knowledge is locked away in secret. Only priests can get to it. There's no effort to invent anything. Any recovered technology is locked up and just put away so that we can have it in our books, but we're never going to do anything with it. So it's essentially what 40K is I don't know if anybody else realizes this too, but 40K is the Dark Ages in space. You got knights with armor, you've got all of these brutal conditions, you got fortresses, you got fighting with swords, you've got all of these things. It's the Middle Age. It's the Dark Ages in space. And when you're prepping a Space Marine, it's not like Starship Troopers, or Halo or anything. It's like, no, there's dark room, and there's a servitors with sensors, and they're making smoke, and servitors are making prayers, and the Martian, who are the tech gods, are saying the prayers over they're trying to pray the machines back to life. The machine spirit is inside everything. It's got some very, very clever terms, but my favorite 40K term is the term they use for an engineer. They call them engine seers. And I think that's fantastic, because the Martians worship the machine god, the Omnissiah. Anyway, that's enough for the 40K folks. Maybe we could do a 40K episode so that nobody who doesn't want to be here doesn't have to be. All right, we'll do some questions here, and then I will be on my merry way. What my merry way consists of. Just back to AI for one quick second. There's a AI writing app called Grammarly. Excuse me, which I got today. It's like ChatGPT. Natasha showed it to me, and she said, "Look, here's a catalog, and now we can say make it sound like a Christmas Carol, make it sound punchier, make it." And there's a lot of value in that. And she wasn't saying this exactly, but she was kind of saying, you can use it to write. It's like, it's kind of right by numbers. And I don't think. I never saw it do anything that I liked. I never saw it made anything better where I thought, wow, that's really great. However, I did realize that it came in very, very, very useful for me. I've been using it all day. I need to go back and get on it again tonight. So my Frank Luke script is so overblown, it's so overwritten, it's just so bloated. And it's bloated because I write it like a novelist. I don't write it like a screenplay writer. I've just been doing so many historical things and so many, essays. The last time I wrote a screenplay, finished a screenplay, was 2007 or 8. And so it's just way too descriptive, and it's depressing to me to read it because I know that there's just way too much kudzu here. It doesn't need it, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. So what I did was I used this Grammarly not to enhance the writing but to reduce it. I cut and pasted 2 or 3 paragraphs of screen descriptions. I send it over to Grammarly, and I just type in one word: concise. Now, those of you who've been around for a while, I mean either since the beginning in 2011 or 12, or for the last 15 minutes or so, that's far enough. Concise is not an adjective that I would apply to myself. In fact, I'm probably the least concise guy there is. I'm just it's all over the place. And so I can take like 4 paragraphs. I was talking about this before. A guy would, in a movie, you've got Frank Luke and he's prize fighting with this guy named Bream, and you would a screenwriter would write, Bream and Luke enter the ring. There's a terrifically intense fight, but Luke prevails. That's it. But no, I have to describe every punch, every move. Ducks under to the left, moves around to the right, does all this other stuff. It's nuts. But that's how I write. And I can take entire, huge, almost sometimes like almost a page of description, chuck it into Grammarly, and it comes, and 14 sentences go in and 2 come out, 3 come out. And it's like, yeah, that's it. Did it miss anything? Not anything important. I put all this, Baroque kind of, fascinating, glistening super details into things that no one's going to pay attention to anyway, because it's all going to be visual. And I'm writing all these details because that's what novelists do. So anyway, thank you very much. Lapco says I missed some super chats from early on. Gramps, okay, and I will go back and see which ones I missed. And then we'll get some questions done, a couple anyway, and then we'll call it a night. Now I'll move on back to having this AI res my work. Res my work, down res my work, not up res it. So that's the first super chat was, what did I think about the Siege of Terror? The Siege of Terror, the final book. The final book was in 3 parts. It might have justified 2, but there was no way it justified 3. There was a lot of filling in there. But Dan Abnett, who wrote the first in the Horus Heresy series, did a number of them, is the best 40K writer there is. Dan Abnett is one of the best science fiction writers I've ever read. His Gaunt's Ghost series is fantastic. Abnett is a science fiction virtuoso. He's just tremendously good. There's nothing he's done that has been bad. Everything he touches is just great because he's in a league all his own. There's probably 5 or 6 writers that they go to frequently, and none of them are close to him. If he's at 100, the next closest writer's at maybe a 40. No, they're all done by many different authors, and some of them are unreadable. I thought I would just start looking at. I come off an Abnett novel in the number 37 of the 63 or whatever it is. I get to 38 and it's like, oh, yeah, okay. I have to skip a couple pages here. Fiery Waco says, spoiler alert, 41K gets a bit less grim. Yeah, I've seen it. They're trying to turn the Astartes into like big brothers, And of course we have to have, if we got male warriors who are 7 feet tall with big bulging muscles, then we've got to have female warriors who are 6'9" with slightly less bulging muscles, but still super, super strong, so they can do everything that the men can do. Because if there's anything that men can do that women can't do, then modern women lose their minds and they kind of go into, swarm mode and just attack it until it's destroyed. Somebody needs to somewhere have the courage to say, this isn't for you. The books are for you. You're welcome to read the books. But no, there are no female Astartes. No, we're not going to do it. But they do. They start walking it back, walking it back, walking it back, always walking it back. Oh. I did this earlier today. It's on this sort of subject. Just because it caught my eye. I was going to make an ephemera entry on this. Let me see if I can find it. Hang on a second. Just 1 second. Don't go away. It's worth it. Probably. Maybe. Who knows? So I was looking at videos earlier today when I was just, having some breakfast here, and I saw something, and it got my attention. Hold on. Yeah, it was easy to find. Okay, so this is not a stage shot. I'll put it in YouTube first. I was just looking at. They were just doing some, some flight work out on the flight deck of the. I think it might have been the Gerald Ford. And every time a guy makes a carrier landing, there's the landing signals officer and a bunch of other guys out there who grade every aspect of his landing. I've talked about this many times. It's what I like about flying the Hornet, especially the Super Hornet. First of all, it's a badass looking airplane. Secondly, the precision required is insane. You got to be within 20 feet up above or below at 350 knots and a plane that's 20 feet tall. It's like flying through a straw, man. A cocktail straw, actually. It's very, 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 very difficult, which is why I like it. So, I saw, just watching some real-world landing things, and I saw a picture, so I did a screen grab of it. And the reason I did a screen grab of it was for purely political reasons, because as you probably know or may not know, I don't know, recently, within the last year or two, some Air Force, I want to say full colonel, basically said, we have got to stop recruiting white male pilots. We have way too many white male pilots. We've got to start. He basically said, we can't hire any more white male pilots because it turns out the pool of pilots isn't diverse enough. Okay. There are no barriers to getting in there, right? This is where you have a legitimate case, of a moral case, if you can say that somebody is prevented from doing the job, not by their skill level, but because of their sex or their skin color or whatever. That is a legitimate concern, but that doesn't exist. The Navy, the Air Force, all the service members, all the service branches are looking for qualified people. So if you're good, you get the job, because we're short on people in the military. So anyway, here's what I saw, and I just did a screen grab of it. These are the landing signal officers on the back of USS Gerald R. Ford. I did plunked it into YouTube first, as usual. Hang on a second. And I just saw these guys looking around, and I just got my attention. So now I'll pop it into, hang on, into Twitch here. Okay, so here's the pop quiz. It's going to be a tricky one. But how many of you out there can spot the one thing that these landing signal officers have in common? That's right, it's the sunglasses. It's the sunglasses. Here's the thing that the left doesn't understand and will not allow. The reason that every one of these guys is a white male, straight white male, is because that's who shows up at airports to take flying lessons. I don't know what it is, but that's who shows up. It's not like women or black people or Hispanics or anybody else or homosexuals or drag queens are being excluded from this landing signal platform. It's that they don't show up. They're not interested in it. They are interested in destroying it because they see all these white male, single white male heterosexuals. They're not single, but you get the idea. All of these steely-eyed missile men out there, and they think, wait a minute, hold on. There's got to be, if everybody there is white and male, then they've got to be keeping somebody out. But they're not. These are the guys that show up. These are the best of the best. These are the guys who fly the most difficult. Every one of these guys is a pilot. They're grading other pilots, mercilessly, I might add. And I saw this earlier today, and I just thought, okay, so the lies continue, The lies continue. It's like, yeah, oh sure, we got it. We can't hire these guys anymore. We can't hire any more white guys. Did I just assume their genders? I did, blank Frankie. You know why? Because I've been taking, in order to defeat this, I've been taking a home study biology course from Hillsdale College. So I am a biologist now, and well, I'm an AA in biology, but that's enough. So since I am now a biologist, I am able to say that yes, these are all white males. These are the best guys there are because they're the best guys there are. If there were women that were as good as these guys, then there'd be women on this platform. But women don't show up to airplanes. That's not to say there aren't good women pilots. This is where people just lose their minds. It's not to say there aren't good women pilots. It is to say that the pool of women pilots is relatively small compared to the pool of men. And when you're talking about flying at this top 2 or 3 percentile, you get squadrons that look like this. I don't know why, but there it is. I actually suspect it might have something to do with you look at a picture like this, it's actually fairly dramatic, I mean, that's why I stopped. When I was flying all the time, going to airports, 95% of the pilots are white males, about that age too. Same kind of haircuts, like mine's a little nicer than theirs, but they got nicer airplanes, generally speaking. So why is that? There's something about it, This is interesting to me. You talk. It's not an IQ issue. It's related to IQ, but it's not an IQ issue. There's statistical evidence that says that Asians are 2 or 3 percentage points smarter than whites on average, and that European Jews are 15 percentage points smarter than your average white male. So it's not intelligence, but it's something. And I thought maybe it's just culture, but it's not. It's not either. There's something about. I don't know. I'm just speaking as a straight white male pilot myself, and that is I like being upside down a lot. I just think it's fun. And we take it very, 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 very seriously. That's what I miss the most about flying, is I miss being around people who don't dick around. I just really like that. And again, I'm not saying this for the benefit of Media Matters, because I don't give a damn what they have to say anymore. But there are excellent women pilots out there. I've had 2 of my instructors have been women pilots. They've been great. However, I did notice, strangely enough, now that I think about it, neither one of them liked going upside down the way I did. In fact, my first instrument instructor, I switched instrument instructors mid-instrument rating because she, with the hood off, now I'm not talking about doing insane things. You went more than 30 degrees a bank with her, she just started getting real uncomfortable. And I'm not talking about doing this erratically or as a surprise or anything, or accidentally even. I'm just saying, straight and level, 30 degrees bank, that's it. More than that, starts really getting uncomfortable. In my first solo flight, I was flying at 70, 80 degrees a bank in a thermal. I was just whipping that thing around. Miss America flies a Hornet, I think. Well, if she flies a Hornet, then she's probably pretty good. There was a famous case of a crash. What was her name? Was it Avon? Revlon? Woman pilot in an F-14 screwed the pooch on approach, and the guy in the back ejected, and she ejected, but the plane was rolling, and the ejection sequences a couple tenths of a second apart, and he got out and she didn't. And Pancho Barnes was an excellent pilot, yes. And so the question is, did she screw that up because she was unqualified, or did she screw it up because men have screwed up landings too before? Kara Holgren, yeah. I saw, what's his name? Was it Ward Carroll talking about this case? And he kind of felt a little bit ambiguous. He kind of said, look, compressor stall is very, very difficult to recover from. She lost one of her engines on short final onto a carrier, which is not something I would like to experience personally. And that the recovery had to be instantaneous, and you had to have it down, and she didn't. And then the other question is, did she get the compressor stall from uncoordinated flying? And I don't know, hard to say. Guys have pretty much every airplane that's ever crashed. I don't know what the percentage of but I'd be willing to bet you that 99.9% of all the airplanes that have ever crashed have been crashed by men. So let's not, put words in my argument. You are joking, right, Lapco? Please tell me you're joking. You're surely you're joking. Yes, he's got to be joking. There's some things I can't take, and that would be one of them. Anyway, I don't know. It's hard to say, but I was struck by those guys who they all look alike, and they all look alike for the same reason that any group of there's a tremendous amount of bonding going on there. These guys literally have their lives in each other's hands, and they're fully aware of it. I noticed that special forces guys tend to look a lot alike. They tend to have beards, tats, and I don't know. I just kind of lost steam on that one. Anyway, all right, here we go. Yeah, questions. That's what it is. Yeah, questions. That's it. Yeah, that's right. Questions. I said I do questions. Yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll do questions. Working. Da da da. Dun, 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 dun. Da da da. I'm going to the members forum now. Dun, 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 dun. Da da da. I don't love you, you don't love me. Da da da. If you don't love me, set me free. Da da da. That's music, baby. But what's the best Russian fighter jet? I think probably the best Russian fighter jet is the newest version of the Flanker, which has 3D thrust vectoring on both engines in all directions, and it is a monster in a dogfight. So it's the best Russian jet, but it's never even going to see the things that shoot it down. I'm sorry. Thank you, Lapko. I've got a Mr. Super Chat. I take that very seriously. Believe it or not, you wouldn't know it from the amount of them that I missed, but I do take it very seriously. Come on. Store. Okay, we got to Donde 2K with his Kevin Costner. Yes, I agree with that. Levi Lance requested reminder Siege of Terra ending opinion. I think I covered that. Lapco, belly up my game. Got a reply from Shelley. I found a 1, 2, 3 DVD in Kansas. Called them and had it shipped to your office. Oh my God. Watch it at your leisure. I won't have to resort to the Clockwork Orange chair. My goodness gracious. Thank you very much. We'll be looking for the DVD. Yeah, and then I'll be looking for something to play it on. I actually have a DVD. I have a USB DVD player at home, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. The super chats are very kind of you, and I'll just spin it in front of me until I finally watch this thing. That's very, very kind. Thank you very much. It's very sweet. I really appreciate that very much. Okay, here we go. Stratopop questions. We got Eric Blake. My goodness. Ian Nolan, Jacob Belchick, George Freeland, Steve Young. If I move the mail, In other words, if I can get the Grammarly in here to concisify me, I'll get through all of these, because I've been missing a lot of questions in the last several shows. So I'm going to make an effort to steamroll through these babies. Eric Blake. I'm going to just leave the... I can't. The man with the hat's in the office tonight, coming in for heads up on Elon, the excellent, a.k.a. the mighty Musk, the savior of free speech, the richest man in the world, and of course the Starman. So imagine if you will, on the night of February 3rd, Elon Musk attends the grand premiere of Lola, written and directed by one Nicola Peltz, who also stars in the film alongside former Disney Channel starlet Selena Gomez. Elon is seen interacting and taking pictures with Nicola and her father, Nelson Peltz. That's a cartoon name, if I ever heard one. Whom you may recall from my question last Stratopop episode, the Republican billionaire investor who's out for multiple seats on Disney's board of directors. A reporter asks Mr. Musk what brings him to the premiere. The Starman replies, "Oh, just here with friends, looking for companies to acquire." Good for him. Submitted for your approval. When Mr. Miller was about to take a trip into oddness and obsolescence, accompanying him on this fateful journey is the mesmerizing sound of the Twilight Zone. I used to be really good at that. Now, as you may recall, last week, as you recall, I noticed that it might behoove Mr. Peltz to call up Elon in light of the GFY incident and propose an alliance. It would seem, Bill, that we may have that manifested that exactly, especially in light of the Gina Carano lawsuit. By the way, in the aforementioned premiere, Elon just happened to be wearing a bomber jacket that looked suspiciously like the one he wore among the GFI incident. Coincidence? I think not. The GFY incident. What am I missing? Oh, yes, the go F yourself incident. Oh, and incidentally, on the 6th, a certain exchange occurred on Twitter X. See the image below. What do you think, Bill? Is it a great, big, beautiful tomorrow dream, just dream away? Something like that. Libs of TikTok. Elon, you can buy business. Elon. Libs of TikTok. Great TikTok channel. Just does nothing but grab what liberals put out there, runs it, and then is banned for running without comment what progressives say by other progressives who realize how embarrassing it is when they say the quiet stuff out loud. So they said, Elon, you could buy Disney and fix it. And Elon replies with a emoji. Yeah, man. I mean, the tide is turning. It has to. It can't go any further. I mean, it'll get worse before it gets better. But, yeah, I think I'm feeling strangely good, This fourth turning thing really got me out of that, no, God, I get to be on duty for the final plunge into hell of, how am I going to ever, now, at least now there's a possibility that I might be able to enter the halls of my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall no longer be ashamed. That would be nice. Yeah, so, yeah, it's great news, Eric, and if you had to have one person on your side, it would be Elon, not because he gets things done also, but because being richest man in the world also brings certain advantages in terms of your ability to pull things off. Jacob Belcheck. Hi, Bill. Hail, Bill. Sorry. Hail, Jacob. I am, to my everlasting shame, a member of Gen Z. Don't take it personally, pal. The one thing I've been saying again and again and again, every time I'm ready to just dump on Gen Z, I make myself say this is the problem with being married is you have to look at the other side of issues because you've got a wife who's smarter than you are and constantly making you realize things. So just before I go on, you did not ask to be, Gen Z did not ask to be raised the way they were raised. Gen Z did not ask for the education that they got. Gen Z didn't ask for any of that. That was inflicted upon them by people who should know better. I would like for them to be doing a little better about self-recovery, but one of the things that was beaten out of them was self-recovery, so we'll see. I am, to my everlasting shame, a member of Gen Z. I am, to my everlasting pride, a member of the baby boom. Snuck in on the last 8 months of it or something. And by the way, if you're going to be given an epithet, somebody's going to call you a bad name, and somebody says, "Okay, boomer," it's like, boomers. I'd pray to have if I was in a naming ceremony for a tactical call sign and somebody called me boomer, I'd be like, man, I have just hit the jackpot. What an awesome name that is. Boomers. We're like, boomers, yeah, boomers. We did invent a lot of stuff, and we did also cure racism. Other than that, mixed bag. I've noticed a deeply rooted sense of cynicism and nihilism throughout the bulk of my generation. We're the most lonely, most medicated, most therapy reliant, and most gender dysphoric generation yet known to men. You are, and that's not fair. And that's just child abuse. My entire generation seems to be possessed correctly, I think, of the notion that something is deeply, deeply wrong with society and with themselves. After all, you don't consider gender surgery if you're happy with your life. Say that again. As a man more removed from Gen Z than I am, and I'm getting to be 65 in about another 2 months, so I am well removed. I am on the other side of the English Channel. If I shoot up a flare, you can see it, but otherwise, hard to know I'm there. What do you think is the cause of this? Why is my generation bound to knee-jerk irony and reflexive inability to take things seriously? This is a terrific question, and I've been looking forward to get a question like this. So let me answer this in all seriousness, because this is a great question. So here's the thing, Jacob. Your generation, through no fault of your own, we shouldn't be mad at Gen Z. I'm not mad at Gen Z. Gen Z annoys me enormously, and when I get annoyed by Gen Z, I stop myself and say, yeah, but they're not the ones responsible for this. Jacob, your generation is the result of a gigantic social experiment. And that experiment was conducted upon you by people who wanted to use you as a demographic to destroy this country. And so whether they realized it or not, the architects certainly realized it. Most of the parents didn't. Most of the parents went along with it. Most of your parents, your Gen Z parents, didn't have super great parents as well. 46 to 64 is the standard. Some people say 60. I've heard 60 is the end of it. Depends on your thing. Hey, if it's 64, it makes me even happier. It puts me solidly inside the boomer generation. I'm fine with that. I don't care. In any event, so here's what happened to you, Jacob, and all the rest of the people of your age. My God, I don't know what it is. Excuse me, I'm just burping like a grass-bellied pig here. Your troubles and I'm speaking about your generation, not you personally, because you're clearly an exception, and there are tens of millions of exceptions. But generally speaking, the reason your generation is so unhappy is because of a theory, and it's the worst theory in the history of the world. You're the victim of a number of bad theories. You're the victim of a society that's gotten so complacent and so wealthy and so secure that we didn't ring alarm bells when people started messing around with our kids' minds. One of the simplest things is, easiest to see, because there's no real emotional attachment to it, is one of the many, many social experiments that you were subjected to is new math. New math is bad math. I mean, I've tried to follow new math, and the reason that we learned old math the way we learned old math is because mathematics has been here more or less since we've been standing upright, and there is, believe it or not, over the course of 8,000 or 9,000 years, a lot of people have been trying to do some figuring and some calculating, and it turns out there's a best way to do this, and this is what we call mathematics. But you were subjected to the new math. It's something different. Something different. So in the minds of a progressive, this is the key to the whole thing, Jacob. In the progressive mind, anything that is different or new is automatically good. If it's new, it's automatically good. There are no bad new ideas, when in point of fact, most new ideas are not good. Beautiful thing about being a conservative is you can be skeptical about all new ideas, but when new ideas come along that actually pass the smell test and seem to be, over time, providing more good than harm, load it up, put it in the truck, we'll drive to Beverly. So new math is a simple example of people trying to get you to do things that are done a different way for the sake of it being a different way, and it's why you can't add. A much better example that I know is this idea of C and say. This genuinely blows my mind. So if it's you, Jacob, watching, or anybody else from Gen Z, this what was done to you with this is is just criminal. It's child abuse. These people should be in jail. Language is a series of written language is a series of symbols that allow you to recreate words. That's what it is. And when you put words together, you can recreate thoughts. That's what a written language is. It's a series of codes, a series of symbols that go down on what's the word I'm looking for? A receiver. It's either a piece of clay, or it's a paper, or it's a iPad screen, whatever. A surface. You put these symbols down on the surface, and you should be able to reconstruct words. And you were taught the exact opposite of how languages work, because somebody had the idea that this was a better way to teach language. See and say. So, when I was learning how to spell and read and write, forget spelling. When I was learning how to read and write, I had to do this. I had to learn the sounds that each one of the letters makes. Sometimes A, B, sometimes B, C, K, D, E, F, G, H, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, P, K, R, S, S, T, U, V, W, yeah, Z. Okay, these are what these letters are. They represent sounds, and up until your generation, or the millennials, got this too. We were taught that if you learn what the letter sound is, then you can read any words you've never seen before, and you just simply puzzle them out by making the sounds that the letters make. This is called phonics. This is how people have always learned how to read and write. And we got away from this. So here's how it works. If I held up a card and it had the word giraffe on it, the way I learned how to speak and read and write was to go g, but g could be sometimes a j, giraffe. You were taught with a picture of a giraffe and the word giraffe next to it, and you were taught to associate these two things together, but that makes the word meaningless. It's meaningless. It might as well be a series of runes or something. It's just a series of symbols. You don't know what the symbols mean. You only know what the association is. That's what this show and say is all about. Here you've got this brilliant system that allows you to pronounce, to puzzle out any word there is. This is how people learn how to read. Jack, that's how you learn how to read. That was robbed from you by people with PhDs who think they had a better way of doing it. How can there be? There's no better way of doing it. If you haven't got the see and say connection, if I show you a word that you've never seen the picture of the word before, you don't know what it is. You've learned words through context, so if I show you a word like exoplanet or something, you probably never got a picture of an exoplanet when you were in kindergarten or first or second grade, but you don't know exoplanet the way that exoplanet is. I can do anything with those letters. You were experimented on, but by far, the worst thing that they did to you, by far, was they, as usual, completely inverted how people become people. Self-esteem is the result of failure and hardship and overcoming failure and hardship. If you don't overcome failure and hardship, you don't have any character. You were taught that the thing to do would be to give you the self-esteem first, and once you had the self-esteem, then you'd go out and conquer new worlds. We don't have enough women pilots. Well, we're going to tell every single little girl in the entire class, and we're not just going to tell them, we're going to pound it into their heads. Every little girl out there, you are capable of being the greatest pilot in the world. You're all going to be astronauts if you want to be. In fact, we want you to be astronauts because there's not enough girl astronauts. That's because the men are keeping all the girls out, or the white people are keeping all the black people out. All of this stuff, you've been taught this your whole life. And it's just a plain flat out lie. And so you've been taught that everything that you do is absolutely the best in the world. And you've never been told no. So you don't get to have, you don't have a chance to cry after losing a baseball game or 10 of them in a row, because you've never been allowed to lose 10 baseball games in a row. So you've never had a chance to cry over those kind of things and realize, well, there's another day, and that's bigger things, there's other things, we'll try next season, whatever. You never got that. So now the first time reality hits you in the face, you're going to be crying when you're being pulled over by a police car, or when, some enormous major event is going to finally kick in where you're going to be under stress, actual unavoidable reality, which is why these body cams, these Gen Z body cams, are so amazing to me. I cannot tell you how many times this is the definition of what was done to Gen Z. Gen Zers would be pulled over for speeding or drunken driving, especially grossly drunken driving. I mean, really just smashed. And the police officer will do the test and so on and say, okay, that's it, you're under arrest. No, I'm not. No, ma'am, you're under arrest. No, I'm not. I'm not under arrest. You can't arrest me. I'm not under arrest. Well, turns out you are. But why do they say, this is the first generation in history that's ever said, I'm not under arrest? I mean, my parents and their parents would maybe say something, you got me, copper, you flatfoots, you finally caught up with me. But they didn't deny that they were being arrested, that these people, these Gen Zers are like, but I feel like it wasn't fair. I don't feel like it was fair. I don't feel like it was fair. I don't feel. Who cares how you feel? It's got nothing to do with how you feel. I don't feel that it was fair. There's no fair either. And no one ever taught you this. No one ever taught you this. So it's got to be, it's just plain child abuse. It's just terrible what was done to you. You're the victim of left-wing theories that were applied to an entire generation, and the people that designed them, not the people that implemented them, because most of them were teachers or parents who had your best interest at heart, and it was maybe easier or whatever. I'm not going to make those people into evil. I'm going to say that they probably should have been paying a lot more attention, but the architects of this want you to be stupid. And they want you to be stupid because stupid people will believe anything. And if you believe something, you'll vote for it. That's simple, man. It's how they get their power and their money. They get their power and their money by convincing other people to vote for them. And the stupider you are, and the less you know about the world, the easier you are to manipulate. And so the first thing that these people are going to do, if they're determined not to go out and work hard, like conservatives do, if you're a lazy person and you want a private jet, you're not going to go to all the trouble of starting a business and putting everything you own into that business and working 80, 90 hours a week for 20 years just to the point where you're routinely in the black, and then you start taking another risk and maybe it grows, and 1 in a million chance hits, after hard work, and you finally have enough money, spend your own money. No. Now, if you want a private jet and you're lazy, what you'll do is you'll figure out, how do you get people to vote you into office, which means how do you tell people what they want to hear. And when you don't know anything about anything, they can convince you of anything. When you see Gen Zers, this isn't a joke. I remember when somebody said to me when I was a kid, so who's buried in Grant's tomb? And I was just silent for a minute because I'm waiting for the rest of the question. What do you mean, who's buried in Grant's tomb? Well, who's buried in Grant's tomb, Bill? Grant? What's the point? I've seen 3 times now where they'll go to Gen Zers in Times Square, New York City, and they'll say, what country is the Great Wall of China in? No clue. No clue. Even questions that have the answers built into them, those kind of gag questions almost, not a clue. So you've been kept in the dark about a bunch of things, and you've been kept in the dark on purpose, and that's why you're so depressed, that's why you're so medicated, that's why you're so lonely. You interact through these things, I interact through these things myself now, okay? I do too. But the difference between you and me is, when I was being formed, when my personality was being formed, catastrophe that was, But I had actual friends, you see, Jacob, and we would do things without the devices. And I'm telling you straight up honestly, ever since I've had one of these things, I've never been bored. Never, ever have I been bored since I've had one of these things. If I'm waiting at the airport, if I'm in the bathroom, for God's sake, I'll do a crossword, whatever. Or maybe I'll solve some sort of quantum equations that people have been working on for 100 years. But I've never been bored. And the problem is that you do your best thinking when you're bored, and the reason you have friends is so that you can go out and not be bored together. Now, I've been online enough. I'm right. I don't think I couldn't have picked a better time to have been born. Honestly, if I could have just sat down and looked at the whole board, future and past, April of 1959 is right where I would have put the pin, because I am just barely young enough, just barely, to have been able to ride that entire computer revolution from on top of the wave, not underneath it like my parents. So I've done things like played Counter-Strike online, and then that was just playing with other players, but we weren't talking to each other. Then we started doing things like Star Citizen and DCS, and now we're talking to each other online. And I know how much fun it is. And the most fun I have in DCS is when I get to play with fly jets around with my friend Phil, because I get to talk with him, and I look over there, and there's his jet. He looks over me, there's my jet. And we have that connection. That's the same kind of connections you guys have, but the difference is that Phil and I, and my friend Steve and I, and Fritz, and all the rest of these clowns spent most of the free days together. We spent after school 3-4 hours together as friends. On weekends, we would sleep over at each other's houses just because we liked being around each other, because it killed the boredom, and you pick your friends. And we had ourselves a blast. And none of that happens for you, because there's a real big difference, man. There's a real big difference between sitting out on a field someplace, like a high school football field or something, just walking out in the middle of the field, just sitting there with 2 or 3 friends, crying about this girl who you had this crush on. Real difference between that and having somebody saying, "Hey, man, here's your emoji, thumbs up, SMH." The human connections were so much better. So much better. They were just deeper. They're not better because we did them and you didn't. They're just better because that's what people need. They need face-to-face connections. They see, my generation, my dad's generation certainly, my generation, Gen X, I would say, by the time you get to Gen Y, it gets a little bit iffy. Millennials are definitely on the other side of the curb, and poor Gen Z's down in the middle of anywhere. But I think one of the reasons that Gen Z is so sad all the time is because none of you guys seem to have, you've all got 10,000 friends, but you don't have any 4 o'clock in the morning friends. And 4 o'clock in the morning friends are the kind of friends you need. So 4 o'clock in the morning friend is the kind of guy who's like, you call somebody at 4 o'clock in the morning, they have to be up at 7:30 for work or 8. You call them at 4 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, Fritz, how's it going? What the hell's the matter? What are you doing? Hey, man, I'm coming back from Vegas and my car broke down and I'm in Barstow and I got no way to get here. There's no Uber or anything. No, nothing. I'm sorry, dude. I just had no one else to call. Can you come get me? Oh, God, are you serious? There's really no way you can get there? No, I'm stuck, man. I'm stuck. I can't get home." All right, what's the address? And at 4 o'clock in the morning, they'll get up and they'll go out and drive for 5 hours to pick you up. That's what at 4 o'clock in the morning. Gen Y are the millennials. Y was just a filler until they came up with the name. That's good to know. It actually makes things clearer for me. That's actually very useful information. Thank you. And right over here, is it PGT MR2? M82? It says imagination is gone. Yes, imagination is gone. Take a look at one of the really early flight sims. In fact, go look for F-19 Stealth Fighter. I was looking at this today. You look at this thing today, Jacob, or anybody else from Gen Z, and you look at this and you think, this is for pre-K kids with learning disabilities. That's how bad this game is. That's how basic this game is, how primitive the game is. But I'm in the prime of my life. I don't know what it was, 20-something or 30-something maybe when it came out. And I am looking at what this piece of crap game is, and I'm really feeling like I'm really landing on the aircraft carrier because it had more reality to it than the things that we used to have to imagine. Like, you know, let's see if I can put one together here. I don't have the requisite tools, apparently. Well, here's something I can do. This is an interesting test. I'm just curious to know. I'm genuinely, legitimately curious to know how many of you Gen Zers can make a paper airplane. Watch carefully. Record this. Get out your phones and record the screen. Do a screen cap of the screen. So record the phone because this is gonna blow your mind. Pretty simple, really. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Okay. Nice stiff index card. We fold it in half like this. Right, just like this. You got to get the half pretty much exactly, and then you didn't do a great job of that. But then you need something to really make that seam. Just crank that baby flat. Okay, now part one. There we go. See, in half. We take the front of the airplane, which will be here. And we take this thing. We fold it back like this so that it covers just like that. Goes to the fold mark. Take this side like this. I haven't done this in 40 years. It's just like remembering something that I haven't done in 40 years, but making up of these things, you will never forget it. Okay, see what we've done there? We've just folded the corners back to match on the fold line. I'm rushing this one, but you get the idea. And then we fold it up again, so we got it like this. And then we take the wings and we fold them down. Not all the way, just part way, like that. See? Oops. See? We didn't go all the way. We just went part way. And we take the other wing and we fold that on top so it goes like this on top of it, more or less. Yeah, it's close enough. Now, this may not look like much, but if you are stuck on a Saturday or something and you don't have any devices, especially if you can get up high, you can have some fun with these things. I missed a step. Because that was just the most pathetic thing I've ever seen. I missed a step. The step I missed was I did not add the streamlining. I did not go with the delta, the advanced delta wing that I needed. The plane crashed because it was incompletely assembled by an idiot. What I forgot to do was where is that? Where did that go? Was it one more? Oh, come on. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. That's it. I got it. It came back to me. See? It was not, yeah, diversity higher here, exactly. I forgot to do the final step, which is to add the extreme leading edge delta. So I'm just folding this thing again to the middle, like I did before, like that. I did that on purpose, by the way. That last throw was just completely intentional. Just did it to show you that you shouldn't throw an uncompleted or an incomplete paper airplane. Now we have to do the wings folding back again. It's been a while. Something like that. And then it's looking better though. Something approximately like this. All right. This is a mess, but you get the general drift. It looks cool. Okay, there. Close enough. Close enough for government work. See, now that's a paper airplane, not that piece of garbage I flew before. It's not really. So, let's see how this one does. I can already tell that this thing needs a little bit of tape, but we'll see. If it hadn't hit that light stand, it would have flown to the wall and gone, I don't know, probably this deep into the wall. So that's now that's not actually the point, Jacob, believe it or not. That's not actually the point. Here's the point. I talk a lot about DCS. You know what DCS is. You're on the web, you're Gen Z, you know everything about DCS. This is DCS. Okay, this is DCS. And if you're riding in your parents' car, you can do this out the window, you get that heavy wind effect. See, this is DCS. Because now you can do things like, well, let's say we wanted to put a little. I mean, this is obviously a supersonic bomber rather than a fighter. I mean, any idiot can look at it, see that. So, put a little cockpit window here, and then we'll put a little cockpit window here. Now, I know this seems ridiculous, but so does everything else I do. Bear with me on this for a second. Ooh, okay, that's pretty cool. Now we got that. And then you can add any number of things. You can fly this around, and guys like me would basically just fly these things around all day. We just walk around. And then sometimes I'd have a friend who had one of these. We chase each other around like this. We look like complete morons. We look like special ed kids. No question about it. But, it was going to the gym. It was going to the mental gym, because this wasn't a paper airplane. You see, it just looks like a paper airplane to you because you didn't have the ability to learn the magic of seeing this as not as a paper airplane, seeing this as a real bitchin' cool airplane, because this is all we had. And so this brings back fond memories. For example, you could put flaps on your airplane if you knew what you were doing, or ailerons, I suppose I should say now in my advanced old age. If you take one of these things like this and bend one side up, you bend the other side down like that, now you can see you've got one trailing edge going up and one trailing edge going down. This baby's going to want to roll that way. Pretty heavily too, I would imagine. Let's see. This thing should just roll like crazy. Yep. Now, I know that seems ridiculous, but it's really not. We could see things in our heads and make these things happen in our heads. So the short answer to your question is, why is Gen Z so unhappy? It's a number of things, and I forgot the most important one. We weren't taught to hate things the way you are. Gen Z prides itself on being the most tolerant generation ever, but you're the least tolerant generation ever. And I'm talking about the people who poisoned you and turned you into grown children, which I think you can, jury's out onto whether you can completely recover from that or not. I don't know. I know I got damaged enough so that I'm not ever going to be a normal person. That's just the way the cards fell. But we weren't taught to hate people. And we weren't taught, most importantly, to hate ourselves. And you guys are. You're taught to hate yourselves. And I don't mean just you personally. You've been taught that humanity is just nothing but a plague on the planet, that we're killing the planet, that because of humans the planet's going to die. The planet's not going to die. The planet is not going to die. They're saying if the carbon dioxide levels get to 460 parts per million, the planet will die. Well, 80 million years ago, they were 3,000 parts per million, and you can look it up, and there's not a geologist alive who will tell you differently. 3,000 parts per million is so far beyond any of the wildest predictions for the next 700 years that it's just a joke. But Earth spent millions of years, tens of millions of years with 3,000 parts per million, and spent thousands of years, tens of thousands, maybe millions of years at 100 parts per million, 160, something like that. And so we never were taught to hate ourselves. We were never taught that we were our own problem. We were never taught that we were the force of oppression. We were taught we were the force of liberation and the force of freedom. And I still believe that, despite the many lapses that we've had. Even the worst of those lapses, the worst managed of the lapses anyway, which was the Vietnam War, which I was too young to really get bitten by, but I was on my way, you know. Even the worst managed of those lapses, the Vietnam War was terribly mismanaged, but you still cannot escape the fact that it was essentially done because the United States of America decided to go to war because the communists once again invaded a country that was a corrupt democracy, but nevertheless a democracy. We fought the Nazis and we fought the Japanese imperialists. We beat them. And then the communists decided to attack South Korea, so we got involved in the Korean War. We didn't start the Korean War, neither did the South Koreans. The communists started that war. We went over there. If we hadn't, then Seoul would not be the tech capital giant that it is today. Seoul would be as dark as Pyongyang. It'd be as dark as the North Korean capital. We went over there and lost a bunch of guys doing that in order to get those people free. That's what we did. We did the same thing for Vietnam. And when we left Vietnam, we had done what we had set out to do, which was go back to the situation before the North invaded. When the United States left Vietnam, North Vietnam was back behind their line, and South Vietnam was an independent country. That's what we did. And when we went to Kuwait, we did that because Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. Yes, oil is there, and yes, we need oil, but we didn't go there because of the oil. What I mean by that is we could have invaded Kuwait ourselves. You know, we didn't have to wait for Saddam to do it. We could have just gone and taken it, but we didn't. And when we were on this oil fields that Saddam had set on fire, the Kuwaiti oil fields, richest oil fields in the world at the time, we had nothing but Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines all over that territory. We owned it. We had our footprints everywhere. We had thousands of tanks and vehicles all over the oil fields. And what did we do? Once we'd gotten the world's oil, once we had our army over the greatest reservoir of oil, what did we do? We put out the fires and we came home. That's what we did. That's what we did. That's historically what we did. So this idea that this country is just so terrible is put in your head because of people who hate the idea that somebody can do better than somebody else. These are lazy, envious, stupid people. And the only way they will ever get power or money is to convince people like you to vote for them. And so it's in their interest, and has been from the beginning, to make sure that your generation is as stupid as possible and as emotional as possible. You've never been taught how to control your emotions because it's not in their interest for you to control your emotions. It's not in their interests for you to be able to control your emotions as a generation. They want you hysterical. They want you in a state of constant emotional turmoil because people vote not based on what they think, but based on how they feel. How you feel is being manipulated all the time by these evil bastards. And the first thing that they do in the manipulation is very clear, because this is the only thing that keeps the manipulation going. The first thing that they do, the first, last, and most important thing that the manipulators do is convince you that guys like me are the problem, because that way you never even listen to us. I'm not speaking about you, Jacob, obviously, but that way it's easy to close the door. When I was in college, I'm not going to do the rest of the questions. I'm sorry. I'm just not. Because this is a really excellent question. So you talk about safe spaces, right? And this idea that, you know, it's not even a question of like, see, there was a time when well, let's just take a name from the past. When Milo Yiannopoulos, for example, would be speaking on campus, there was a time when not only was he going to speak on campus, but you had to go. It was part of your class assignment. Now, Gen Z is fighting to make sure that they never hear anything different or anything new because it makes them emotionally upset. So let me tell you how I handled this. When I was 20 years old at the University of Florida, I was in some class. It was one of my favorite classes. I think it was a kind of a anthropology class, but it was essentially about the ascent of man. It was about the series Jacob Bernowski did. And I was in that class, and I was some, suburban white kid from Key Biscayne, Florida, and Bermuda. It's about as privileged as it can get, I guess. But you know what? I didn't pick that slot, and the privilege that I enjoyed was the result of my father working his butt off. So anybody could be privileged. The privilege as an exclusionary thing doesn't exist. It just doesn't. Anybody can live that life if they want to work hard enough. Anyway, I went to this class, and I had an opinion about something, and I remember the vague outlines of it because it was real uncomfortable for me. And I said something that I believed to be true. And there was a black kid in that class who'd come from a very different background than me. And he basically stood up and told me I was full of shit and told me why. And got a little heated about it too. And I got a little heated about it too because I didn't appreciate it, being called all of these things, and what I was seeing was completely true and go straight to hell. So it was an unpleasant experience. But after the class was over, we met outside and we talked about it. It started out really hot, hey man, but over the course of about 5 minutes, we realized that we were both serious, that I wasn't lying in order to score points, and he wasn't lying either. And so we decided to go out across the street to the Orange and Brew, and we decided to have a couple beers and talk it over. And we did. And I changed my mind, and he changed his mind. Not that we both reversed positions, it's that we both walked towards the middle. We both began to realize that I was seeing things that he wasn't seeing. He was seeing things that I wasn't seeing. Both of us were telling the truth. Neither one of us was lying. Neither one of us was evil. We were just plain coming from different places, and we learned how to see things better. That's what happens when you have conflict. If you have control of your emotions and you don't go into sobbing fits because somebody's disagreeing with you. This is what's been done to you. You've been deprived of the ability to not only make new friends, but you've been deprived of the ability to change your mind. You've been told so, you've been indoctrinated so heavily that you think that anybody who thinks differently has to be evil is certainly wrong. And when you're asked to defend the things that you believe in, you can't do it because well, first of all, because they're not defensible, but secondly, because what you've been doing is not really thinking. You've been reciting. And the advantage of being a conservative is, since we're constantly under attack by all the liberals who know that their ideas are garbage and have to do this kind of rhetorical sleight of hand in order to stay in business, we get to hear how full of crap we are every day. And that means we have to test our beliefs. We're constantly flying in the face of, you're all racist, Nazis, haters, and so on. And then we have to sit down every day. Do what I believe in, the things I believe in, are they really evil? I believe in freedom and I believe in maximized happiness. Is that evil? I don't think it's evil. I believe everybody should be able to become whatever they want to be so long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. I don't think that's evil. I think it's entirely appropriate that you should make as much money, get as much reward for as much work as you want to do. I'm not making you work hard, and I'm not making you not work hard. It's up to you. You want to make enough money you want to make 20, 25 grand a year so you can afford a studio apartment in some relatively inexpensive part of the country with a good internet connection. You can go out and get your ramen noodles, and you can play Call of Duty all day and all night and all day and all night. If that's what you want to do it. It's not up to me. It's up to you. these are the things that we believe in, and because we believe these things, we're called evil, and we're called, racist and monsters and all the rest of it. Nobody wants to be a racist or a monster, but since you have nothing to compare it to, since you've never had a discussion about this, you just believe. And when you are confronted with somebody who knows how to talk about these things and knows how to argue, generally speaking, Gen Z goes into vapor lock, and you won't know what vapor lock is because you grew up in a time when cars are much more advanced than they used to be. I'm speaking to Gen Z out there, the one Gen Zer who's watching the show. If you look at old movies, you'll see many things that you don't connect to, that you can't, and that's true for everybody. I didn't know how to run a combine harvester, or you'll see certain things that technology has eliminated. The dial telephone, for example, they're gone because push buttons much better. And now we don't even push buttons, and now we just have touch-sensitive glass. But one of the things that you've probably heard from older movies and never heard in your real life is the idea of going out to a car and starting your car and having the car go yung 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 while you're pumping the gas pedal, boom boom boom, yung 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 yung. I'm gonna drain the battery. Yung 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 yung. I probably flooded it. I probably put so much gas now that the carburetors are actually filled with gas. It's not getting a vapor anymore. I have to sit for 10 minutes, wait for the stuff to evaporate so I can try again. I don't have that kind of time. Yung 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 yung. Damn it. Why is that? Well, it's because of something called top dead center. The timing of the spark, piston comes up and compresses the gasoline and air mixture, spark goes off, fires off. The timing for that, for maximum power, is different than the timing for starting the car. In other words, you want the spark plugs to fire at a different time relative to this compression cycle, power stroke. You want it to fire at different times if you want full power, but you want different timing if you want to actually start the car. And on the days before there was electronic ignition, you couldn't have it both ways. So your car was adjusted to produce its maximum power. You just had to start the thing, and sometimes it just wouldn't. Sometimes it just wouldn't. Even the best cars still used to go yung 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 yung. You didn't get 200 youngs, but you got a couple. So now I sit in my car. I don't even have a key anymore. This is even better because I don't have to get the key out of my pocket. I don't have to lose it, blah, blah, blah. I can just walk up to the door unlocks. I've got this fob in my pocket. Sit down, push a button, the car goes boom, like that instantly. It's much better. Much better. Much better. And the car is constantly adjusting itself and constantly setting its best mixture, its best timing based on what the car is doing. It's wonderful. It's a technological advantage. But there are all kinds of things that are alien to you because it's not that I want you guys to know. It's not that I want you guys to have a car that doesn't start. I just want you to know why your cars start. In fact, I'll go even further than that. I don't give a damn actually if you know whether or why your cars start. I just want you to drive, because driving is freedom, and when I see young people not driving, I have a real hard time with that. Probably it's because you get to experience motion through video games, and the only time we got to experience motion was by moving. And as a guy who's completely deep into flight sims and Star Citizen and DCS, I like moving. I like moving fast. I like to fly fast. I like to move fast a lot. But with the exception of riding in my parents' car, which doesn't count because I'm just a blob, I'm a passenger. Controlling a moving vehicle, there's a generation out there that will get this. In fact, every generation up to and including the boomers, prior to the boomers, will get this. And then as you get closer down to your age, it gets less and less common. But every person of my generation, young men especially, because this is how boys' brains are wired, if there was ever at any point in my childhood from the age of 3 to the age of 20, not true, 16, because by the time I'm 16 I have my own car, but between the ages of 3 or 4 and 16, if there was ever a chance for me to steer something that moved, I would take it. Instantly. The most fun I ever had as a kid, by far, by far. I remember it like it was yesterday. The single best day of my life as a kid was the day that a friend of mine got a go-kart. And he let me ride it a little. And I was just... That was the most fun I think I ever had. Because it was freedom, it's like, I'm over here, now I want to go over there. These kind of things seem so basic that, again, it sounds like a special eds kid talking, but if you don't have them, then you appreciate them. If you do have them, then you don't. Dirt bikes, mini bikes were fun too. Driving mower, yeah, sure, man. I'll mow the, that's a great example, Eric. Eric Blake says, driving mower, yes. Do you want to mow the grass, Bill? No, I do not. Dad, it's Florida, for God's sake. Have you not noticed? It's Florida. It's 98 degrees and 100% humidity out there. It's August 2nd in Florida. I do not want to go out and mow the grass. Well, I got a driving mower. Bill-shaped little outline of dust cloud where Bill used to be. Driving things. It's just weird, but it's true. So anyway, I'm starting to get to the other questions. But Jacob, when you ask that question, it's heartbreaking for me. And I know that when boomers and to some degree Gen Xers really think about it, they all cut you guys a break, because the behaviors of Gen Z are so unbelievably antisocial. They're so annoying. They're just so selfish and so annoying that we get so angry seeing it. But every one of us, when we're stopped on it, when we're called on it, realizes that you guys not only didn't ask for this. This is not like a failure on your part. You're not victimizing other people. You're the victims. You've been badly mistreated and deprived. And it's a crime what happened to Gen Z. It's a crime, and the criminals are still out there. And their names are Clinton and Obama and Pelosi and all the rest of them. And Kamala Harris is your patron saint. She's the polar star of Gen Z. She's exactly what Gen Z. She's not in Gen Z, but she's exactly what Gen Z became. I mean, she is the person who pushes this kind of stuff down on young people, and that's why Kamala Harris is the kind of person who can say, well, we're gathered here today, out here among the trees and in the woods where the beautiful trees are, and here we all are together. People of different kinds of backgrounds. Some people have different backgrounds from others, and here we are together at the same time, in the same place, with these same trees, and we all like the trees. Everybody likes trees. And you realize this person's talking for 45 minutes and she doesn't say anything, because she can't. She has nothing to say. She's expected to go out and speak, so she makes noises, but she's not saying anything because she doesn't know how to think. I'm not saying Kamala Harris is stupid. I'm saying she's spectacularly uneducated, and also I wouldn't put her in the college bowl, Just saying. 4 on the floor, baby. 3 All right, this is the last thing I want to say. There are a few things that Gen Z has that we're all jealous of. First of all, you guys are crazy good looking. Every generation gets better looking. And I looked at my high school yearbook and I thought there's some really cute girls there, but honestly, I mean, it's just astonishing, really. It's just, I wish there was more to you than that as a general rule. I hear a vacuum cleaner. It'd be about time for me to wrap the show. But one of the things that you missed, and you're very fortunate to have missed, was you missed a specific kind of travesty. It was a very, very dark period in American history that caused a lot of suffering and emotional distress, because there was a period of time where, I don't know how long it lasted, where in order to shift your car from one gear to another, instead of having the stick shift on the floor where it belongs, you would move this lever on the steering wheel handle. 3 gears on the steering wheel, we call that 3 on the tree, as opposed to 4 on the floor. 4 gears on the floor plus a reverse, you're in business. Maybe that even included the reverse. But 3 on the tree was, I can't bear to talk about it. None of us who ever experienced 3 on the tree can talk about it. I never had a car that had 3 on the tree. Stop it. This is not funny anymore. But I had a good friend who had 3 on the tree. He had a Dodge Dart, kind of a milk blue, kind of powder blue, yucky, no metallic blue. Every person should know how to drive. Every male American should know how to drive a stick shift. It just should be required. But driving a stick shift, it makes sense. But 3 on the tree was. Sorry, that was kind of a bad trip there. Don't let friends drive 3 on the tree. God, that was an awkward, stupid thing. Oh, you rolled your Vega GT. I had a Vega. My mom had a Vega, rather, I should say. She just gotten divorced. We were very tight on money. She bought a Vega, which had the revolutionary aluminum block, and we drove that car for about 3 months, and then the aluminum block cracked. And as it turns out, a cracked engine block is one of the more expensive parts to fix on an automobile. But it was aluminum, which meant it was lightweight, which meant it got better fuel economy than a steel engine block. The only real problem being, of course, that they would just crack in half, and then they don't work anymore. But otherwise, they were excellent. With glass-lined cylinders, is that true too, Astronerd? My God, what were they thinking? Well, I know what they were thinking. They were panicking. My friend Phil Trick, who saved my life more times than I can care to mention, not physically that I'm aware of, but morally, emotionally, and intellectually, used to make fun of the ads that were coming out back then, because when the Arab oil embargo hit in 1973 and you couldn't get gas anymore, you have to wait in line for gas for an hour, 2 hours. It got so bad that you couldn't buy gas if you had an even license plate ended in, let's say, 8 or 6 or 2 or any of the other even numbers. You could only buy gas on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you had an odd, you could only buy it Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. And you'd sit in line for gas for 2 hours. I know people would get on the floor in Miami, would get on the Florida Turnpike, and they'd drive 60 miles to get gas. So they burn half of the gas, but at least they could get it on the Turnpike. Those were dark days. And American car makers suddenly realized that these Japanese cars get tremendous fuel mileage, and we're putting out these god-awful, American lanyards like my dad's Mercury Marquis station wagon, which he informed me about 2 weeks into the fuel crisis, he came home with a sour look on his face and announced to everybody that he had purchased the car with the worst gas mileage rating in the history of automobiles. The Mercury Marquis station wagon got 7 miles per gallon in the city. And there weren't that many gallons around. But Phil always used to talk about how much he was disgusted by the ad campaigns, because General Motors, while they were scrambling to fill this void, all of a sudden they need cars with mileage. So they're cranking out these things like the Vega and the Pinto, these absolute death traps and garbage heaps. garbage. But they never gave up on their core audience, so Phil would always get upset when they would say, this is the term they used, you can have a compact or you can have a full-sized car. Wouldn't you rather drive a full-sized car? I would rather drive a full-sized car, absolutely, yes, yes. Well, the Canyonero is a full-sized car. It's not one of these cheap little compacts that those foreigners are making. No, this is a full-sized car, and that's what they would describe when they were making the ugliest cars in the history of the country, in the history of the world. Ugliest car ever made by far is the AMC Matador. There are uglier cars, but uglier cars have an excuse for being ugly. The Matador was designed ugly by people who should have known better. Like a Trabant is not a pretty looking car, but a 3-cylinder engine, you're in the communist bloc, you're not going to put out anything that looks like a Stingray. But the AMC Matador was the ugliest car ever. The AMC Matador is the only car I ever saw that looked like it crapped its pants. I don't know how else to describe it. You look at the Matador from the rear, it looks like it's wearing a Depends. Oh, that was a horrible, hideous, awful car. Now I'm going to look up the Matador and just so I have bad acid flashbacks. Okay, I'm going to go. It was fun, as always, and again, I'm sorry to get to all the questions, but that was a great question on the part of Jacobs. I'd rather do one question well than 30 questions, brilliantly. Yeah, well, Thanks, my guy. Little for number 50, you're welcome. You're welcome, my guy. All right, my guy. Everybody's my guy. Super Hornet, go. Maine, USA. I plan to have a new T-shirt for every day for the next year. Eclipse plans, yes. We are going to be going near the town of Enos, Texas. And when we get them locked, we will let you know. But plan on being in Dallas, Fort Worth area. That's where we're going to be. And we will give out the specifics later. What we'll do is, as we get closer and closer, we'll set up some kind of contact network, maybe some kind of giant, WhatsApp chain or something, that's free and, it's not sending texts or something, maybe WhatsApp or something like that. And we'll have a group thing, and that way we'll be able to stay in constant communication. And any of the outliers, get lost, you can use the homing devices, and we'll bring you back into the fold here. And that would be the plan. All right, so I'm gonna wrap it. I'm gonna wrap it up right now, baby. Hey, it's been fun and it's been real, but it hasn't been real fun. Ha ha! Oh, that was so clever. Hey, it's been real and it's been fun, but it hasn't been real fun. Ah ha 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 ha. Oh, how delightfully charming. When I was, 13 or something. All right, this show's made possible by the members of BillWhittle.com who keep these things coming. Nobody knows why. but we're very glad they do. And I don't know. I expect sometime in the not too distant future, I will be able to have an AI sit in here, and I have no doubt the quality will improve significantly. All right, so thanks again to the members for making this possible. We'll see you Thursday night at the Stratosphere Lounge. And until then, let's say goodbye to our Twitch friends first, I guess. So we'll see you next time right here in your very own Stratosphere Studio. Hooray! Okay, YouTube. It's time for us to talk. The paper airplane saved the evening. It had to do something. Done. I couldn't go out like that, not like that. I had to do something. That's the first paper airplane I made in 40 years. And I actually, when I did the first part and it went, straight in, I thought, what am I doing wrong? And then I remember, oh, yeah. Forgot to fold. I'm an origami man, baby. All right, YouTube, this is it. We're out of here. Good night. Thanks for joining us. And my God, we had 102 viewers. What's the matter with you people? Have you nothing better to do with your lives? Go home. Just call me Ferris Whittle. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. So have a good night. Bye-bye.